Hi, fam. I'm sorry about that. Cut out for a moment. So as I was saying, Taylor Swift has this moment of introspection and doesn't really do much with it. That's unfortunate. As far as I'm aware, it's just the same old, same old. It's just about the popularity and success in the music industry, and it's all very clever and good and whatnot, but not really finding a deeper purpose in life, and we're not recognizing, like, maybe being a wife and mother is the ultimate goal. Like, maybe at the end of the day, like, God is the ultimate goal, and whether you are pursuing a pop star career, which could fizzle out, despite how talented and clever you are in staying popular, like, to find that peace and happiness and knowing, like, hey, even if this thing that I enjoy, I'm sharing my music with people, and it's not like she doesn't have, like, a talent for, like, the showmanship and making people feel like she actually does care about them, and enjoys performing for them. Like, just like something that about that is, like, actually genuine, and saying, like, maybe she enjoys that, but at the end of the day there needs to be something deeper, but she hasn't found that. And you would hope it is, I would hope she would realize soon that it is in God that you would find that. Like, yeah, I enjoy this, and it's not bad to enjoy it, and it is good to be able to share my talent and music with people and make them feel seen, or just feel like I actually care about them, and give them, like, a good experience. That's all well and good. That is a good thing. And if something should change and people start seeking a new celebrity for their entertainment, that I can still find some sort of purpose beyond that, and therefore some sort of joy that would bring her more peace. Even if she doesn't decide, like, after a while I want to fade away and become a wife and mother. I mean, this is kind of what happened, I feel like, with Adele. She kind of is faded back from the pop idol scene to just be a wife and mother. To be a wife and mother, just fade in the background and focus on that. And she's happy with that. She never indicated, like, an obsession with being popular and famous forever, like Taylor Swift has. So I don't know how much of what was going on behind the scenes there, but she at least cared enough about her music to create the music and become the famous celebrity that she was. But for Taylor Swift, like, she doesn't really have a purpose beyond the fame and popularity. So it's no wonder that she had those feelings of sadness and being replaced, which I guess it could be sad, like, to think about her popularity coming to end, her music no longer being popular, and her having no need to perform. That's pretty inevitable. Pretty inevitable. I mean, some celebrities might it might be like they might be performing almost their whole lives. But at a certain point, you're, like, going to be kind of old to travel and sing and dance and things like that, and you want to kind of, like, resign from that with dignity, instead of forcing yourself to do it the rest of your life, even if it's something you enjoy. Because I've definitely seen that certain celebrities have done that, where they're, like, just always trying to be popular to the end, and it's really sad and depressing. I think you can think of her, who she is. Pray for her. But yeah, the prayers for these pop stars and these movie stars. So there's a couple more I would like to mention, although they may have already started to fade into obscurity already. Although Billie Eilish was pretty popular. She came off, I guess, a song for a movie last year, so I guess she's still pretty relevant. I don't know how long it will last. We can never know. but it is something that she preaches about sexism. Like, I don't want to be preached to during a concert. I want to be entertained. And she did have that moment, I think, when she was in Texas, where she talked about, like, oh, I hated that men are making decisions about women's bodies, blah, blah, blah. Right, you know the talking points. But coming from a woman whose brother writes songs for her, it never mind the whole political debate and moral debate, although that's very important, but a woman whose songs are written by a man, her brother, there's just so little appreciation. It's like, yeah, just become a feminist and dunk on all men despite you literally depending on a man, and your success was in cooperation with a man, and you and your brother are like basically best friends. But this like feminist mentality is trying to drive a wedge between these people, between them. But it seems like they legitimately had like this brotherhood and sisterhood. Like they had there's like this love there, this filial love, this friendship too. They really genuinely care about each other, but like it almost seems like it shuts off in her mind that like he's a man or something. It's like, it's crazy. But like she depended on men for her success. She depended on a man for her success. Like she and her brother, that's fine. That's fine. I think it's cool, well and cool that they can collaborate this way, and like you can demonstrate a brotherly, sisterly relationship where they work as a team for success, and that's something I think is awesome and beautiful. But then on the flip side, like just ignore that fact to become a feminist preacher. Never mind that being a feminist preacher is pretty annoying during a show, but on top of that, like just dumping on men at the expense of the reality that you actually depended on a man and cooperated with a man for so many years, and our dear friends and family with a man, is just mind-blowing. The cognitive dissonance there is like, well, you should show some appreciation for men, and you should make some exceptions for the statements. You can't make general statements about men, even if you don't agree with them, and there's certain men that you don't agree with. There's clearly a man in your life that you care and love, and who loves you, and who supports you, and who has been cooperating with you this whole time, and you couldn't have be where you are without him. So that's pretty upsetting. I feel like Billie Eilish is just like a spoiled brat, and in my eyes, I mean, she's pretty young looking. She behaves like a young woman, and she, again, like I know for a fact that so many of her songs that brought her success were written by her brother. It's not something that they hide or anything. But on the flip side, she tries to be this ultra feminist. Like she did this by herself. No, she didn't. It's so weird that there's this cognitive dissonance. Like, oh, I love my family. My mom's there, supporting me, and my brother helped me write the music. We write this music together, and then at the same time, be like, oh, men are they suck. Like, she's just so angry, I guess, at these conservative men that she's willing to throw her brother under the bus in the heat of the moment, and also maybe entertainment under the bus, because who wants to be preached to about these kind of things at a concert? I wouldn't pay to get preached to. I don't care which celebrity it is, a man, woman, Billie Eilish, Taylor Swift, Adele. Like I'd hate to be at a concert and get preached to about any political issue. I'm just like, can we just move on to the music? And why you're here is what I paid for, was for the music. At least I get the impression that Taylor Swift understands that she's there to entertain people, and doesn't, as far as I'm aware, preach to people during her concerts, even though she's very politically outspoken. And I would hope Billie Eilish would do the same. Maybe she stopped that since the whole Texas issue. It's like, sure, you're gonna have like a half the audience that's with you, but I feel like there's the other half who either is not in line with that view, or even if they're aligned with her view on abortion, would just be annoyed that they spent money to just be preached at. Like, I already agree with you. Can we move on to music or something like that? So those are the kind of annoying things that made me lose respect for Billie Eilish. Despite me liking, I do like the music that is co-created with a man, by the way. I didn't really think about it much because, she's the voice of the music. But it's like, yeah, shout out to her brother Phineas too for helping make this music. Like, this is awesome. Like, it's not possible. Majority of it would not be possible without him. He's like in the background. He doesn't seem to be concerned with he doesn't seem to care like that she gets more of the credit and is like the face of it all. He's just happy to collaborate and support her. It was my impression, unless I'm like missing something. I don't really look too much into the family and that. But my impression with Billie Eilish is that yeah, she's outspoken with all these various radical movements and leftist movements, whatever you want to call them, and is very emotional. And it's like, okay, she's immature, she's young, so she's gonna be jumping on whatever bandwagon and be very emotionally volatile about it. But there's other issues with Billie Eilish. I have that even though the music is just chill most of the time, it's just chill music and there's no like propaganda shoved in. There's no like ill intention in it at all. And the majority of the music is just chill, relaxing, listening music. That this woman is kind of like really volatile and emotional and young, and it's like maybe she's changed since then. Maybe she's matured since then. But yeah, it's unfortunate. Like, I know she gets criticized a lot, and she started out so young, and she's trying to figure out like she's going into her womanhood under the magnifying glass of a pop star, and she's done things that are questionable and criticizable, like that magazine where she's in a corset, and it's just so hilarious because even people who are more woke are critical because the corset has been so long a theme and a trope for like oppression and sexism. The corset is like a tool that's restrictive of women. It's symbolic of how women are supposed to be thin and just like a symbol of the patriarchy because it's about literally restraining them and things like that. And I think this is even alluded at in Brave, the movie about I think it's Scottish folk, the Pixney movie about a Scottish princess, and it's not just about female beauty, but it's like it symbolizes like the restrictiveness. I guess it happens a lot in the Disney movies. Apparently, in Alice in Wonderland live action remake, or whatever it's called, like Alice is made to wear it, and it's supposed to be like a symbol of the patriarchy. And now she's wearing it. So like, regardless of what side you're coming from, there's like a different angle people can take to jab at this. But ultimately, I feel like the men in her life, you would hope would want to protect her and say, there's men out there who would lust after you, and they will absolutely stay silent about this. You think that the men that are speaking out are the ones that you should be accusing of lusting after you? Well, think about the men who are staying silent and just silently lusting after you. I think they care less about you than the ones who are willing to speak out and take all this hate and this shade, and they're just trying to warn you, even at the risk of publicly exposing themselves, or more likely just to try and protect you at the risk of being stigmatized and mislabeled as sexist and perverted, when they're just pointing out the obvious that there's perverts out there and they're going to take advantage of this. And you don't want to continue down this path because, then the chauvinists win, the sexists win, the perverts and the lustful creeps win. But that was just one fiasco. And I would think, well, where's her brother and her father in all of this? I believe she still has a father. It seems like she mentioned him on Father's Day. I don't know if what's going on with that right now, but I know she has a brother who cares about her dearly, and you'd think he would caution her about this. But she's supposed to be like an adult and whatnot, and celebrity. But even still, they seem really close to each other. So he would probably point out like that maybe this isn't such a good idea. But maybe I'm wrong. Maybe because we live in a second world, and like it's her body, it's her choice, blah blah blah. Who cares about the consequences? I'm a man, and I don't know about womanly things, and I can't speak to this, but you do know about men and how they can be tempted to look at women, and you would want to protect your sister from that, I would think. So I would hope he would say something about that, and prevent her from doing that. Like, yeah, I get it. You could get a lot of hate and shade for the way you dress, and you kind of had like the hip hop baggy look, and the other extreme where you didn't look terribly feminine, and people dumped on you for that. And I said, like, I would say, like, I'm glad that there was actually finally a celebrity, even though maybe, yeah, she could dress a little more feminine from time to time, but it's nice to see a celebrity who actually dresses modestly for a change, rather than really provocative and scantily clad. Like, for a change, she dresses like modestly and for a long last. We have the celebrity, now she's gonna pose in a corset randomly. It's sad. And I was like, wow, I can't believe that there's no winning. Maybe women feminists are right. You can't be too sexy, and you can't be too raggedy or baggy or whatever. So there's no winning. Like, Billie Eilish was so young. She shouldn't be pressured into sexually exploiting herself. But yeah, she was. She's pressured to it and gave into it. And I feel sorry for her for that. I mean, like, I would want to say I want to support your attire, and you're willing to, if you want to wear more baggy clothes, then more power to you, because not too many women are willing to do that, and you don't see too many celebrities doing that. I'm sure if you want to wear dresses or something a little more feminine occasionally, I would encourage that, but it's something like radical and actually pretty cool that that for the longest time you didn't cave into that mentality. You have to be scantily clad because you become a woman or something, or because you're a female celebrity, that you can just wear more casual clothes, and oftentimes more baggy clothes. It's like that's pretty cool. But I feel like she just went further and further downhill the further she continued on the pop idol life. So despite her music being pretty chill, like I think you can see Taylor Swift, there's some songs where it's kind of like toxic situations. I don't see that too much with Billie Eilish, except for the Bad Guy song, which you can kind of shrug off, sort of. I don't know about recent songs. What was it like? I don't know how to feel. I forget what it's called, but that song was beautiful. She has a beautiful voice and a beautiful writer of music. So it's a part of me that doesn't want to like boycott or abstain from Billie Eilish music, but just because of just what a mess and a roller coaster things can be with Billie Eilish, it kind of makes me like maybe take a break for a while, see where she goes, if she matures and things like that. Like, hopefully we can detach the music from the artist and all the politics and the decisions decisions that she makes that may not be in the best interest for herself or for womankind. But yeah, it's hard to support a celebrity that just, take advantage of her audience by preaching to them during a concert, which they paid for. They paid so much money to be entertained, and then they have to be lectured, regardless if they agree with her or not. And then on top of that, in more recent days, just, she buy into that kind of like feminist ideology and like talking bad about men and talking about how men are always the problem, and like there's no middle ground. There's no possibility that there's something that women can do to improve themselves, or how that in a way naturally not trying to make any big statements. She already kind of goes against the grain, and that's awesome. Like just being herself, and that she doesn't give in to the pressures of the world. But it is what it is. So last and debatably not least, although there's so many celebrities out there worth talking about, Olivia Rodrigo. Wow. Former Disney Channel star, kind of a more independent pop star type. But again, it's like, yeah, she captures that moody teen audience, but it's kind of like it's going to get old. It's all about her breakups. This is her songs that she's popular for. Compared to Taylor Swift, she actually has some songs where she's popular because songs that are popular of hers that are about falling in love, even though she's kind of stigmatized as the one for like putting her exes on blast and breakups and things like that. Olivia Rodrigo isn't much different, and I don't think there's really any songs that are popular of hers that I'm aware of. Maybe she has some, but like all the songs that are popular of hers are about her breakups and how her ex sucks and all that jazz. And I can't think of an Olivia Rodrigo song where she sings about falling in love and just being in a healthy, stable relationship, or just just falling in love. Maybe that relationship doesn't turn out very well, but it's just all toxic relationship stuff. And how the man sucks. The man sucks. Even something awesome and great like getting her driver's license, where she can like gain that freedom and that independence. Oh, still moping about how her ex used to go there, and she's driving. She got her driver's license. She's driving, and she goes to all these places where she and her ex went to, and is sad. Like even in her happy moments, she's sad, and I'm like, maybe that's not, an emotional teenhood. That's not an unheard of experience, but it's kind of sad in the context of all the different Olivia Rodrigo songs, which is this is all sad. It's like it's gonna get old and boring fast if she keeps talking about like her breakups and how her ex sucks, and it's just bringing her down. It's like, okay, that it starts with that, and then Deja Vu is still about her harping on her ex, and Happy and Healthy, even though it's like this upbeat song, it's about how she's not happy, she's not healthy. Her ex is happy and healthy. Maybe you should stop obsessing about your ex. I know this is supposed to be like this is a common human experience, common teeny bopper experience, so you can relate, but it feels like it's gonna get old fast. I don't know what recent song she could have created that deviates from that. I never really followed her much. She's more like a Gen Z celebrity than any of the other celebrities that I mentioned. Although I feel like some of them, like, yeah, they have a lot of Gen Z fan base, and I came to recognize their name during the Gen Z fan base, but there's something for me, like Olivia Rodrigo appealed to Gen Z teens, while the other artists can appeal to Gen Z beyond teenhood. That's my impression. And so Olivia Rodrigo's kind of in this tiny box. She sparked a conversation about space travel, and this is just like a random thing to think about. Like, this is something that we're actually discussing, but it's an important topic, I think. So even though I feel like Olivia Rodrigo is fading to obscurity, maybe I'm wrong, maybe I just not in tune with what is popular with Gen Z, and then she came up with other songs that are just her about harping her over her ex in the most mopey way possible. But she talks about how it's like a red flag. It's not just a deal breaker. It's not just her personally preferring not to date an astronaut. Like, she thinks it's a red flag if a man thinks about going to space. Not that he actually will in fact go to space, which I could understand. And I feel like that could be a deal breaker for women. I wouldn't say it's a red flag. It doesn't necessarily follow that, okay, you should never date a man who wants to go to space. And it's like, I feel like that's the majority of men. They think about going to space. So it's like, you're really narrowing it down. I don't think it's inherently evil, or there's nothing intrinsically evil about that. It's like, the red flag, if they mistreat the women in their lives, their sister, their mom, that's a red flag. It's not just a deal breaker, that's a red flag. A deal breaker would be like, oh, he wants to leave Earth for space, and like, I want to be his wife. Like, for some people, maybe joining the military could be a deal breaker, even though I think it's a very noble thing to join the military. I personally am not sure if I could stand being apart from a husband like that. For some women, it might be a deal breaker. But for others, like, they're willing to endure that hardship of being physically apart from their husband and also worrying about their husband's lives by having them join the military, maybe actually going off to war somewhere. Again, not a red flag. There's a big difference between a deal breaker and a red flag in my mind. But maybe the words are kind of simultaneous, interchangeable for some people, and it might be the case with Olivia Rodrigo. But the phrase they used is red flag, not deal breaker. So I feel like it's a little harsher and it's more universal, but maybe she interpreted it as a deal breaker and more personal, more subjective. But in the clip where she's asked this, what is a red flag? And she says, man thinks about going to space. She specifically states, because you do have to be a
think at all.
The biggest red flag, okay, this is a very oddly specific question that I ask guys on first dates. I always ask them if they think that they would want to go to space. And if they say yes, I don't date them. I just think if you want to go to space, you're a little too full of yourself, 'cause I think it's just weird.
So I wanted to try to conclude the clip so you can hear the words from her own mouth. So yeah, I kind of paraphrased there, but the idea is that he's just full of himself. I mean, there's multiple ways you can interpret this. And again, I could care less about what Olivia Rodrigo says, but for me, the problem isn't so much I don't care what she says, but I do care about the effects of what she says. That I am concerned about how people perceive this and how people, namely women, care about what she says, and how that enters their minds and how that affects their minds. So yeah, what's the big deal? Like, no man in my circle is gonna date an Olivia Rodrigo, so why do they care? Who cares what she says? It's not gonna affect them. It's not gonna harm them. They will be fine without Olivia Rodrigo being in their lives. And I think about it like, I don't care what she has to say, but some people do. Some women do. Some women have responded and reacted to this, and some have infiltrated their minds and have them think that, yeah, maybe I should ask men if they think about going to space. So this thing kind of trended a little bit, and I guess my concern is that, yeah, like you're going to discourage space travel. Like I feel like that's like the idea that she was trying to go with. Like it's been recent, and I'm not the only one who thinks this. I forget which like journal or news site, but the journalist even points out, like, yeah, there's billionaires who want to fund space travel, and so she kind of is taking a sting at them. And I get the impression like she doesn't like these billionaires getting involved with space travel. So in spite of them, she tries to discourage people from wanting to go into space travel. I've seen the harms and ripple effects happening already. Like, even though I don't care what she says, apparently women care, other women care what she says, and then women care about what other women say. And I would hope that would not deter women after all this effort to get them into the STEMs. I think one of Elon's ex-girlfriends or something posted on X that she says, like, only women should go to space. So that kind of implies to me that there's this ripple effect. Again, also in the article that I found, commenting on Olivia Rodrigo's quote unquote red flag, is a statement like, oh, well, you know, the problem isn't with women going to space. It kind of implies that the issue is that we don't want men to go into space. For a man, yeah, that's a red flag, because men have already gone to space and men have already conquered the world, and some weird theory like that, some sort of weird premise like, oh, men have already conquered and traveled the world, so it is automatically narcissistic of them to want to go to space. But, you know, if women want to go to space, it's not. But that's not what Olivia Rodrigo said. What she said was that you're full of yourself if you want to go to space, or you're thinking about going to space, which is another thing. Like, you got to make the case that wanting to go to space means that you are full of yourself, or you're a narcissist. I don't necessarily see that going hand in hand. If you want to be an astronaut, and there is some women in space, and how you can say that and say it only applies to men and not to women, you can't really make that case on behalf of Olivia Rodrigo. She did not say that. She said, I asked this question. I guess, of course, being like a woman, she's going to ask this of a man, and like, if he says yes, then she's going to assume that he is full of himself. One comedian commented, like, oh, you're not going to space. Like, who are you going to tell what they can and can't do? You don't know that lady. And of course, Olivia Rodrigo made it clear that is thinking about going to space. It doesn't necessarily mean that they practically conclude that, hey, I'm actually, as a matter of fact, going to space. I could kind of understand it being a deal breaker, like I said earlier. Okay, this guy wants to is serious about going to space. So maybe it's a deal breaker if he's serious about going to space. Maybe I don't want to be in a relationship with him because it's like too long distance and too risky, and of a career choice. And I just rather have my man nearby. Like, it's one thing if he wanted to travel the world for business purposes and choose a career, like, even that for me, just me personally, would be hard. And again, it'd be my personal like deal breaker, not necessarily like a universal thing. Like, if women say, you know, I'm fine if my husband has to travel to Europe or to Asia or wherever, and travel the world frequently for work purposes, like, I'm okay with that. It's difficult, of course, to be physically apart from him, but I'm okay with that, and maybe I will travel with him. For me, maybe in my younger years, I would have been like, yeah, that's cool. I'd be fine if I married a businessman who travels to different countries and I could go with him. But at the same time, I'm kind of like, if his job required like frequently traveling away from me, for me personally, I feel like that's a deal breaker. Like, it's enough to have my husband spontaneously leave early in the morning and have like an emergency plumbing job. That's fine. I can live with that. Like obviously he needs to work. If anything, I think I'd rather have him have something going on. For me, it's the spontaneity that's kind of rough, but I'm okay with it. But it is what it is. That's just a reality. Like I kind of prefer there to be like a plan, but obviously with his career path, there's going to be spontaneous work jobs like for emergencies, like emergency leaks he's got to fix, and that's all well and good. And although it sucks for the hotel or whatever location to have a like a leak or something, on the bright side, he gets work, and he's flexible and can do that. But if he had to just like spontaneously leave the state, never mind the country, that would be kind of hard for me. So especially now with the hindsight of like being pregnant and being like, I can't spontaneously join him on these trips. And I just don't really like the idea of my husband being out of state. Away from the home, fine. Late in my pregnancy, but out of state, I was like, ugh. And then I go into labor. Yeah, just with that in mind, that changes things. But back when I was younger, I'd probably be like, yeah, even if you travel to like out of the country a lot, I'd be okay with it. But I feel like I would draw the line out of the country. Maybe occasionally going out of the state, fine. But like going out of the country, like no way. Deal breaker for me. But that's different than a red flag where it's like, if the man's abusive towards his mother or sister or like any women in his life, that's a red flag. That's something that should be universally recognized as bad. And again, like going to outer space, like it's hard enough to think about like a man going out of country, but going to outer space, I'm not sure I could have a relationship with a man who did that. Like more power to you if you can. More power to you if that's a dream of yours that you want to pursue and you want to leave the atmosphere. That's cool. Initially, I was thinking like, yeah, space sounds cool. Going to travel space for a day sounds cool, and I think for women as well as men, like even though they practically know, in my case, like especially now that I'm pregnant, but even before, like knowing like, hey, I'm physically not capable of going into outer space. There's certain physical requirements you must meet in order to go to space. Like it's bad enough sometimes for just certain air travel requirements for certain aircraft, never mind spacecraft. They have to be able to endure the G forces or lack of regular G forces and spinning and all that jazz and being a tiny vessel and all those things, and just be physically and mentally in a place where you can endure those sort of things. It's like I doubt I'd meet the requirements for that. There might be like certain height requirements, there's certain physical requirements, a certain fitness level, because I'm sure your muscles will start to atrophy at a certain point, being in like net zero gravity and such. But like to dream about space and open your mind to the worlds of possibilities, I think is a good and healthy thing. But on top of that, some people practically can go to space. And then on top of that, yeah, my mind, in the 21st century, like this decade has opened up the possibility that even though I'm currently not physically capable, because people dare to dream about going to space, even though they're not physically capable of going to space with the current space travel methods available to us, that maybe even though right now I don't meet the requirements, maybe even not just like as a career path, not as an astronaut, super buff astronaut, but like a generally healthy average person and a woman can actually go to space. Like it might be possible for space travel because people were allowed to dare dream of going to space. Like maybe I can actually go recreationally as a trip. Like people do those, what are they called? Sometimes people go skydiving. It's like, why the heck do you want to do that? Some people go scuba diving. Some people go on one of those air tunnel things where it's like skydiving indoors. People want to do something that's fun and cool. And the only reason right now that it would seem, quote unquote, you're full of yourself, it's like, maybe you're not. Maybe they are physically able to doing this. Maybe they can practically do this. Or maybe because they dare to dream about it and they want that for not only themselves, but their people. Maybe they can't physically do this. Maybe they don't want to do this as a career. But, skydiving is crazy. And I think it's crazy and I would never want to do it. But for some reason, I want to go to space. I think it would be cool right now. Practically, that's not possible, and I accept that. And I feel like I'm being mocked by the comedians. Like, oh, you're never going to go to space. You don't know that. Maybe I can. Maybe I can. I never really tried to see if I've physically meet the requirements. I mean, obviously right now I'm pregnant, so I'm pretty confident that I don't. But, that's discouraging to women as well as to men. Should not even try to practically try to meet the requirements and even think about it. Just get shut down. Oh, my fellow woman who for some reason care about what Olivia Rodrigo says. Not only do they reject the men and they shut the men down that way from dreaming about going to space, but they also shut down the women, saying like, oh, I think it's like an ick that men think about going to space. And then, like, as a woman, you're not gonna be like, hey, I think about going to space, and you're my friend. Like, how dare you say that? I doubt they would be confrontational like that. I would bet like most women would be like, oh, yeah, silly men wanting to go to space. Like, yeah, again, after all this time, all these years, all this feminism for STEM research, like, oh, we're going to shut down women? Because I have so many peers and friends who are, it's like, this is personal. Not only like are my dreams being shut down before I even had the chance to dream them or try to pursue them, but like there's so many women who are into STEM, and again, some of the reactions kind of hint at that oh, well, if women want to go to space, then they're not really narcissists, because women haven't really traveled to space much, or something like that. Men have conquered the world. It's like, I wonder why the conquistadors were men, and Christopher Columbus was a man, and they didn't take women. Oh, probably because it was too risky for the women. And if you shut down the men, how much more are you going to shut down the women? Not only making them think like they are full of themselves, or they're cringy for wanting to even dream about going to space, never mind actually going to space, despite the efforts for feminism. Like, the reactions hint to me that these women are aware that it's going to impact women and their mindset. And like, well, if it's cringy for the men to think about going to space, then maybe it's cringy for me to think about going to space. Not only should I not date men who think about going to space, but I shouldn't be a woman who thinks about going to space. So people are already reacting and like thinking, actually, we don't want to discourage women. Like, we're feminists. We're pushing for women to be in the STEMs. So I'm sort of upset about it because of the ripple effect, because women are discouraged from, thinking about going to space. Like, it's already a rare thing for women to think about going to space, and now they're being shut down even more so. If the men are being shut down, even more so are the women. And they've been trying to encourage women to think about going to space by encouraging the STEMs, even though there's an article out there that like argues like, well, it's okay because women haven't really gone to space much. Although there's a woman in space right now, and sadly she's stuck there unjustly. It's sad. I'm hoping she got saved at this point, but last I heard she was stuck up there, and a couple male astronauts as well are stuck up there in space because Boeing. Do I need to say more? But yeah, people find it scary. Women especially find it scary. The reaction to this statement shows like how vulnerable and susceptible women are. And it's like, yeah, it's a 2-to-1 ratio of women right now in space. I mean, ideally they shouldn't be still in space because their mission wasn't supposed to be this long. It was supposed to be like maybe a few weeks over, like instead of like over a few months of being in space. That sucks. Like, wow, this woman like met the physical requirements. Now she's stuck in space with some other male astronauts. She's like the only female up there in space. Like, and then you want to say stuff like this. Anyway, recently, as recent as last year, Amazon released a movie called A Million Miles Away, and it's about a Hispanic American. He, despite all odds, became an astronaut, and it's just so inspiring. Initially, Jose Hernandez, I believe was his name, wrote the book about it, and was hesitant to make a movie about it, but he went through with making this movie because he still wanted to inspire people, and he recognized like the director, I believe it was the director, she's like a female Hispanic woman. Not that really matters, but my point is, like, in the woke mindset, like you're shutting all these people down. Like, anyway, she wanted to encourage people, and thought that the story was inspirational, and convinced him to like make it into a movie. And he saw like what she wanted to do, and he's like, yeah, that makes sense. Like, I wanted to do this to inspire people, and that's what this movie will do. It is pretty inspirational because regardless of your race and background, and his background is obviously very rough. Like his parents were farmers. Like, they couldn't be further removed from the the ability to make him to provide for him so he could be an astronaut, and yet that happened, and it was hard. It was a big struggle. I don't know. It's hard to say how much like being Hispanic played into that, but certainly, like, regardless of your race, I feel like there's something relatable about that, because, and regardless of your dream, whether you want to go to space, like this is a difficult and challenging goal, regardless of your race, but maybe because of your class, because of your background, maybe even because of your ethnicity, it might be a little harder. But he managed to become an engineer, which was exceptional, and his wife thought he was kind of sort of like crazy for wanting to go to space. But he did tell her, like, going into the marriage, like, he thought that he had that in mind, so he didn't just blindside her with that. But it did seem like in the movie, like, he kind of kept a secret that he was applying to actually be legitimately an astronaut. It's like, okay, that's fine. You have this idea, this dream. Like, I accept it. But it seems like, based on the literature and the real life account, like, she was supportive of this. But the movie, it seems like she was more surprised by the fact that he wanted to actually apply and pursue like a career, or actually legitimately physically go into space. I mean, he's already an engineer, so you got to be really smart to be an astronaut. But on top of that, physically like capable. And he applied, I think it was like maybe 10 or so times, and it's like the 11th time that he actually got accepted. So it's difficult. Like, it's physical, it's mental, it's intellectual, and it's just also, you got to consider your family and what they need, and he had to consider what his wife needed and wanted as well. But he was hesitant to tell her because he was rejected. That he even applied, and but she found out. She saw the letters and found out. Again, I'm not 100% sure if that was just like a movie or if that actually happened in his real life story. I haven't gotten the chance to like delve into that, but it's sad to think, like, first that this movie came out last year, and then you're shutting this down. Like, this movie was created by Hispanics, and you're shutting that down. So it's like so anti-woke, it's sexist, it's ethnicist, and all that jazz. But more importantly, like, the Million Miles Away movie, it's based on a story of Jose Hernandez, and if he didn't have the freedom to like dream about going to space, he never would have gone to space and never achieved anything. never achieved this challenging dream, I should say. He achieved a lot, but he never would have achieved this challenging dream and been a source of inspiration for many people. And regardless if they want to go to space or not, or think about going to space or not, like, this is a source of inspiration for a lot of people. But apparently it's just supposed to be narcissistic, or Jose Hernandez is just full of himself or something like that. But he did consider his wife, and he wanted to use his story not for his own glory, but to encourage people to follow their dreams despite the challenges and obstacles. And to me, it seemed not so much to do with ethnicity as it did with like the physical obstacles, the practical setbacks, and you could argue like the class background, than anything else. But even that, you don't need that on top of that to realize like that he did go through a great challenge to achieve his dream. And going to space is a challenge right now. But nowadays, like, it could be a bigger reality, and people dare to dream to go to space and make that accessible to other people. And maybe you're kind of like closed-minded if your assumption is that the person is just full of themselves in thinking about going to space. Again, that has a ripple effect of impacting women. Again, we're trying to get women involved in STEM. I had friends and peers who are in who are engineers and involved in one way or another in this progress and this development of space travel. And if nobody wants to go to space, then that screws them over. And if they're supposed to be considered cringy for thinking about going to space, then that screws them over. And like, part of the reason they get involved in this is because maybe they thought about going to space, and maybe they want to get humankind to space, and that's why they pursue the STEM, but they're being shut down because I don't know, because people want to defend a random celebrity's statement or something. But yeah, it's upsetting because of the ripple effect. You would hope that it wouldn't have that much of a ripple effect. As far as the comment is like only women should go to space, you're gonna still have to support the billionaires. You might not like it, but the bar is set high right now. But if space travel, maybe it's possible. Like, first of all, people have to dream about being able to dream about going to space. But then after that, they can dream about like getting people to space, even the with lower requirements and not risking their lives. Make it more commercial. Like, maybe they're not physically at the level of astronauts today, but hey, maybe dreaming about going to space to make space more accessible to more people. And if you want only women to go to space, I don't know why. That's disturbing. Like let women decide whether or not they want to go to space, and that's my position. You shouldn't pressure women to go to space, to dream about going to space, and you shouldn't pressure women to fear about dreaming that and sharing that dream. I prefer it not to be restrictive like that. But yeah, if you want that possibility for women to go to space when it's much harder for them because, first of all, they're not as physically strong as men, and number two, want women to go to space physically and also be involved in that space development and go into the STEMs and become engineers, and say like, oh, well, maybe physically I can't go to space, but at least I can participate by being an engineer, which is a big deal actually. But maybe want to have a family eventually and be a stay-at-home mom. Like, that's more common for a woman. Like, a man's not going to be like a stay-at-home dad. It's more likely that women, there's more challenges for women, and it's understandable. It's reasonable. But if you can make space travel more commercial to the point where you can safely take an average healthy person to space, then you can have more women go to space, and men who may not be as physically strong as as an astronaut needs to be nowadays. Maybe the standards will change as it becomes more commercially accessible, without like risking the lives any more so than they do now, and maybe reducing the risk overall for anyone, even astronauts. That would be ideal. But maybe as space travel technology progresses, even though a lot of people want to hate on it, and one of the hesitations, of course, is like it's scary. I don't want to go to space. It's too scary. Like one might dare to dream and think about going to space, despite the statement of silly celebrities. Despite the fear, because the fears are going to be erased because of the advancement in space travel, and like it would be more accessible without artificially lowering the standards and saying we want to include everybody, we want to include handicapped people, so we're just going to lower the standards, but the risks are just as high as ever. No, they're going to reduce the risk by making space travel commercially accessible, so that people with disabilities can have their dreams of going to space come true, and we can travel to space just for fun, and it's not as risky as skydiving would be, which to me is crazy. But yeah, like, to the point where you can even have kids traveling to space, that would be so sick and so awesome. And we can't have that without people being given the freedom to dream about going to space. But there's probably this wave of anti-space travel might very well pass. Like the women susceptible to that might not really have that big of an effect. I would hope not. Maybe women are like, even though my friends think that the thought of space travel is cringe just because some silly celebrity said, that doesn't affect me. I don't care anymore. I care more about pursuing my dreams, and that's more possible. And despite people not liking the idea that billionaires are investing in space travel, it does open the door to more commercial space travel. I mean, with air travel, it just started with two brothers, the Warner brothers, trying to make a flying machine, and it was risky, and it sounded crazy. But then you wouldn't have Amelia Earhart, who hopefully we don't have Amelia Earharts for space travel, to where they just disappear, but like actually can come home safely. But yeah, it took years to get to the point where air travel could be commercial and considered rather safe, as long as you avoid a Boeing, apparently. So yeah, we want alternatives to make air travel safer and space travel, commercial space travel possible. Just like we made air travel safe and safe enough for commercial purposes, Boeing aside. But I'll stop mentioning them because they don't deserve that much attention, even though it's negative. But yeah, I hope they get their act together, because yeah, I'm glad there's organizations out there that are funding space travel and can legitimately make it safe. They don't just make it commercial, but they make it safe for commercial use, as safe, if not safer, than the air travel we have today, and hopefully make maybe air travel safer. I would hope. That's always the goal. But yeah, it's pretty cool, like how we progressed as a human race for air travel. Like, you're so full of yourself, Amelia Earhart, wanting to fly a plane across the ocean. Just so full of yourself. Why do you want to do that? Well, you want to inspire women. Well, the things didn't really seem to end well because she disappeared, so I wouldn't really want to put her as a prime example. I would want the Amelia Earharts of air and of space travel to come home safely. And then there are female astronauts out there, and I hope they come safely, and that these new organizations that are funding space travel can help them out, and the Boeing will let them help them out. instead of, put their ego aside. So there's a lot more than the politics things, the social side of things. But yeah, I say like dare, feel free to dream about going to space, whether it's practical or not. And maybe one day it actually might be practical for you to go to space. I think there's like a healthy aspect to it. Like maybe some people can practically go to space and do end up going to space, and that can benefit humanity. We don't have to be so narrow-minded that we can't even think of a benefit to humanity for that, but also like to make progress. So even though currently we don't meet the standards, that maybe we can allow space travel to be more diverse and inclusive and fun. But of course we don't want that because billionaires are responsible for it, and that's gross. So if you want women to go to space, then you want to make space travel accessible to them because they're not as physically strong as men, and sadly society is against it, and it's coming from the feminist side, not from the men, but the feminist. Unfortunately, the supposed feminists are actually the ones deterring women from going to space, to dare to dream about going to space. Right now, it's too dangerous, and I think that's a legitimate concern. But to address that legitimate concern, you need to advance in space travel where it can be less dangerous, that women can actually legitimately feel comfortable about going to space. Because as it is right now, it's not too comfortable. And the haters are going to hate because they don't like billionaires, but actually they're making progress, whether they're intentional or not, to make space travel more accessible, and therefore more accessible to women. But yeah, they don't like it. Like, make it accessible to everybody, not just women. But the feminists only care about the women. But even to have it your way for more women to go to space, you need to make space travel more safe, more accessible, more controllable. And they're doing that. Whether you like it or not, they're doing it. So, daring to dream to go to space, man or woman, young or old. And that dream is becoming more and more reality. And the joke will age well. Like, you're never going to go to space. Right now, practically, no, I don't think so. But it's pretty cool to think that, hey, actually, now that you mention it, these billionaires might make it possible that even though I currently am not physically able to go to space, I might actually be. Because there was one time when air travel seemed like a crazy idea, and that women pilots was that's outrageous idea, and like, oh, now it is practical for women to be pilots of certain commercial crafts, and so maybe I could go to space too, and it would be more recreational. It's not like intense, but it would be funny how that would age out, and to think like maybe we can actually commercially and recreationally go to space. That would be mind blowing. I think it's possible. Now that I think about it, so those comments do not age well. Human beings dare to dream about going to space and making it practical for other human beings. Maybe not. Maybe myself. Maybe my generation. Maybe not. Maybe my next generation. Maybe my daughter's generation. Initially, I thought like I have to have a talk and be like, well, you can't practically go to space. Like, I support you and I want you to have dreams and be able to dream about going to space, but just be aware you can't practically go to space. And even if you work as hard as Jose Hernandez did, that maybe you can't practically go to space. But actually, now that I think about it, as of making this video, the billionaires are actually making it be practically possible that maybe space travel will be safe enough and accessible enough for you to actually practically go to space. This is mind-blowing, exciting, that my daughter can grow up in that generation. But despite, what goes on with space travel advancement, I would like to think like, yeah, you should dare to dream that, and if it's not practical, accept that, and if it does become practical, then that's pretty cool. That's pretty awesome. If you get to participate in that would be awesome too, and forget whatever people full of themselves have to say about that. I'm the evangelical Catholic, and that's my 10 cents about space travel and 2 cents about female celebrities and how, yeah, you should be able to dream about things and balance what is practical and put aside what the public says. Whether they're trying to push this idea or shut down the idea. Although ultimately they kind of shut it down. But I mean, they're all about like, oh, we need only women to go to space. Oh, women need to go to space. Because men have already conquered the world, so women need to conquer the space or something. Yeah, that kind of backfires if you depend on the billionaires to make that happen. But my point is that I think that dreaming about going to space is just one example of the dreams that we might have that seem impractical. Possible, but pretty personally impractical. Can't speak today. Impractical. But could open the doors for other people, and doesn't necessarily mean that you are full of yourself, but it just means that you want to go beyond yourself and pursue a dream that, yeah, sure, could benefit yourself, but other people too. So if you are a woman dreaming about going to space, maybe you'll become the engineer that so many feminists have been longing for. And maybe if space travel becomes more commercial and you participate in that, maybe you can also go to space without having to be a super qualified astronaut. The same qualifications of an astronaut today, anyway. And you too can be an astronaut or just like a commercial traveler. It's mind-blowing. So, again, dreaming about going to space, I think, opens so many doors that you don't even realize. And people are just trying to put a cap on it because of other vaguely related reasons, like they don't like billionaires investing in it or something like that. So yeah, balance the practical with your dreams and don't let the world crush them, because they have their own agenda and that shouldn't negatively impact you. That's my hope in creating this video. So thank you for listening again. My hope is that we can also balance the practical, reasonable balance of celebrities, recognizing that they're human. Then they never should be idols or role models. Sometimes they shouldn't even be role models in our lives, and try to divorce that from the music. And what line do we draw when we can say like, yeah, I can't divorce the artist from the art, and I'd rather skip these celebrities. Like recently with Snow White, like I'm done with Disney. I'm so done with Disney. I like the classic Disney, but I'm at that point where I'm like, skip it. There's other studios that created these classic fairy tales and brought them to life that I would just expose my daughter to, instead of even classic Disney, which brought they brought these fairy tales to life in a beautiful way. And maybe someday, depending on which direction Disney takes. But at this particular point in time, it's spitting upon its classics and the viewers and fans of the classics. And it needs to wake up to that reality that there's a reason why we like these classics, these original Disney movies, because they tried to create art out of and bring these stories to life. These stories are classic stories for a reason, to understand why that is, what it reveals to us about our calling as human beings, and how it demonstrates femininity. And I can find that elsewhere, to a certain degree, outside of Disney. But it's sad to think like animation, like they had beautiful backgrounds and beautiful animation, and all that hard work and artistry is disregarded But it's not just that, but it's also like bringing these classic stories to life and preserving the ideas behind them and the message behind them, that Disney has long forsaken to push its own agenda, and taking what's natural and mocking it, and trying to force its own unnatural propaganda on people, and just shoving that into what they think people liked. Even if it was like an animated remake, I don't know why they would do that, but if they made an animated remake with like beautiful art, like they did originally with the original movies, like that's still missing the point. And the same thing with Star Wars. They keep using the Star Wars universe, and I know there's a lot of potential there, but they miss what's so classic and captivating about Star Wars and why it's so popular. And it's like, oh, it's just set in space and it has these weird names for these planets and things, and that's what makes Star Wars cool. Well, you could argue maybe it does make Star Wars cool. It's not what makes it Star Wars and makes it popular, and you miss the point. So Disney has flopped in a lot of ways. So I kind of distance myself as of right now. When my daughter's old enough to watch Disney movies, I'll see if I'll expose her to that sort of material and support Disney again. But as of right now, I'm kind of like, I'm done with it. I'm done with it. I'm so done with it. So sick of it. It's not even worth my time anymore. And it just keeps undermining itself and contradicting itself and mocking our values, mocking the audience for liking the original stuff. And it's just kind of sexist. Like it kind of is. Like men are evil, men are weak, men are pathetic, and the only way we can make strong women protagonists is by making the man weak. I don't know what the second Moana movie story was, but I kind of don't care. The original one kind of like, oh, the man messed up and he's weak and pathetic and he's going to disappear from the movie right now, and we'll just leave it to Moana to save the day. Like, he can't even be there to witness her save the day. It is just, he is just too pathetic and weak and embarrassed for himself to be there for the final act. It's sad that they feel like the need to write out male characters, like, oh, well, we need the men to be weak or absent so that the women can be strong. Like, if you can't write strong women where the men can be present, then you don't really have a very strong female character. That's sad to me. It's like it could work. You could still have them like work as a team, but you feel the need that you can't. That in order for the woman to be strong, the men has to be weak or absent, and they can't work as a team. So I'm not a fan of that. And that's kind of my impression with one as beautiful as a story and neat. I find like a lot of aspects of the movie. Like Moana's like the chosen one. She was chosen by the ocean, and yeah, to me it's kind of like this is going downhill. This kind of went downhill with Frozen, but it's gotten way worse since then with the mockery of like the classic fairy tales, and like we need to have females who are strong, and like apparently the original ones were weak and pathetic, and like missing the whole point, and that femininity is somehow bad. It's just like a whole other story. But yeah, I wanted to find and have found other studios have brought these classics to life and done a way better job than where men and women can actually work as a team and both be strong, and strong characters and strong people, strong roles in the movie, and just appreciate the beauty that it is and the beautiful message that the fairy tales try to convey. So there's something out there for my daughter. I was like, yeah, I don't need Disney as badly as we might be brainwashed into thinking. So, and as much as I like the classics, by the way, I'll reiterate, like I would want to show the classics. They are good, but it's just like Disney, the industry is just so far gone that as of this moment, I want to distance myself from it, boycott it until it gets its act back together. But like I hope that happens, because again, the classics are good, and like a lot of people are like, I don't want like modern Disney, but I do like the classics. But for me, I'm just so sick of it. It's just so far gone that it's not even worth introducing the classics, and by doing so, introducing Disney. Like it's almost overrated at this point. Although again, I would argue that the original classic Disney movies were works of art, and not only works of art, but works of art that conveyed a beautiful fairy story. Then they got the message with fairy story. So thank you for my TED Talk. Please support your daughter's dreams of going to space, as I will mine, and try to seek out good, healthy role models. And I know it's hard, and again, in the real world, like, people are always going to be flawed and weak, but maybe I can actually find actual role models out there. They're few far between. I would hope like we can find role models, even keeping in mind that they're flawed human beings. But I can't really say that I've brought any to attention today, but hopefully one day soon. And thank you, and God love you. Bye.